What up? Good morning, but happy impending new moon in Virgo. Also happy Virgo season to my wonderful, analytical, interpretive, precise, acrobatic minds. They're sly ones, although sometimes I think in all of that lack the finesse that they need. In the excitement can lack the finesse they need. I've also read that they're likened to foxes, which would make sense, you know, like very slick, very sly, but can tumble into its own tail sometimes. For those who do not understand the criticale of Virgos, please go easy on them. They're only hyper aware because they, like some of us, have lived before. I mean, and that's also maybe just the mythology, but we have upset them before, so so be kind to them for their season, eh? Yeah, Virgos are dope. I've fallen in love with a Virgo before, but and I'm a Scorpio. So you can only imagine. But anyway, the sun and the moon will be in Virgo, hence the new moon concept. Mercury is also close by, and like there's a lot of, it's like in between Venus and Mars, and I feel like it's sort of erring on the side of Mars, like almost like outrunning. Not that Venus would chase, but yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting momentum. We'll see where that goes. But speaking of Virgo being ruled in Mercury, Mercury is also happily in good company with other dwarf planets, which I know aren't necessarily red, but they are weight, they are mass. That does add to momentum, and that is weight in the fragile fabric of space and time. So I don't know, include all potentialities. I think that momentum leaves us in a good spirit, in a good place. However, sometimes it does feel like, in general, time is moving quite fast, and other planets are retrograded, so I feel like that creates a little bit more distance and friction in that context. Mercury will be going retrograde sometime next month, I believe early next month, so soon. So, you know, that momentum sure is building. And perhaps we'll catapult because of that momentum. I don't know. Will we feel sprung into that time? I feel pretty sprung into Virgo time already. There's some interesting, here, let me see that. There's some interesting things going on, purely because it looks, I feel like Saturn and Venus are in opposition, and Pluto and the Sun are squaring in opposition. I don't know. But Pluto with the Sun and the Moon, like all of that energy, I feel like, again, that like Mercury running from Venus and that Saturn opposition with Venus is almost like escaping from lessons or from learning, like escaping aspects of ourselves, escaping maybe, or eclipsing joys that we actually want. And you know what, the irony of that is the system eclipses the, you know, minor joys that keep us thriving. But I mean, not minor, the joys, no joy is minor, and doesn't necessarily see those as fruitful or nourishing beyond a bodily context. The detail-oriented nature of Virgo with the sun and the moon sort of superpowering this reflection, like having both, having the sun and the moon drawn for you is a very transformative place to be. It's a very illuminating place to be. It's a very whole place to be. It is essentially the alchemical union of partners in many ways, which is why it's also such a key manifestation time, or why so many people associate new moons with like new creation. However, I do think that's often misinterpreted as physicality within relationships, in which we've been taught actually that it's two halves making a whole rather than two wholes creating something new. We have ourselves for situations often far too much, or feel like we have to have ourselves for somebody, which is why Eartha Kitt laughs in the face of compromise. But that sort of facing off, or like having this sort of like direct around the corner energy with Pluto being in retrograde, Pluto also being like about the size of one of the dwarf planets that's like hanging out with Mercury, I think is a precise analysis and sort of sifting through of both the details of their life and how they weave and how they add together, and that may come in a guest list and being like, this is not what I want anymore, and this is what will bring me a good experience. This is what will bring me joy. This will no longer. This is, not a part of the story. It's like editing. Our life is always in draft. But this particular energy, I think, is a really, really profound editor, and gives us, the ability to sort of like go in with a red pen and really finesse and like fine tune what it is we're trying to say to the world, what it is we are trying to say to ourselves, what it is that we feel in our presence, what it is that we feel in our schedule, in our all of the ways that we exist and move and walk forward and there was something else. Let me see. The planets today. Oh, I know. It is something about. Was it? No, maybe not. Maybe not. Oh, no, that's also here. Pallas, Athena, and Mars in Gemini. Mars is in Gemini, Pallas, Athena is, again, maybe not read as often or whatever, but I feel like both have a very similar energy, like, no offense, Pallas, Athena, but like, are you giving me pick-me energy right now? Because being in the sign of Gemini, I don't feel like it's giving us options. I feel like it's giving us like false options, like a false this or that, when actually they're the same thing. The irony of that is literally everywhere in a society, world, spiritual world that does not compute dichotomy, does not compute non-duality, does not compute non-binary. Although you can compute that. You can actually totally compute that. Yeah, I feel like if it's almost like giving us, those games where they like cover your options and they give you like two rancid things but tell you one's water and like just want to see your face, or give you two silly things. You know what I mean? It just doesn't feel like an expansive picture. And they're very close together. They don't even span the whole house. And I feel like that is more narrow-minded than Gemini is typically comfortable with. And like, it's so set. Like, what an illusion. What an illusion, truly. And that is maybe where Virgo will take this power to, despite any detriment in Neptune or intensity there with its retrograde and its placement. Will give it the strength, and like I said, that like fine red pen to really finesse and become the Mr. Fox of its world. That's so funny. Sorry, Timmy. Hilarious. Okay. I've rambled on long enough. We're gonna pull some cards. See what's up with everything. I don't know. I do know. Virgo always knows. Always. Don't let that ego get you. Okay. Alright, much like we are hanging out in person, sitting together, and there are cards in front of you, just keep your hands out, available to whatever energy is around you, so that I can also click into that. And we're just going to take 3 deep breaths together, which even if you don't believe it, the breath is good for you, and just feels good. Take a deep inhale. On the exhale, imagine a shadow card kind of rising into your hands, and that will help pull any answers that we want or any information that we want, and keep us on a similar channel. Alrighty, take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Okay. I feel like 2 things. In fast-moving times, it can often feel like, even without their knowledge, perhaps, or without that intention. However, I do think the system has their own intention. But regardless, it can often feel like we're being asked to suppress emotions, to suppress worry, to suppress fear, to suppress, fear sucks, but to suppress the way that we're feeling, to suppress like truly embodying our emotions. Not that it like has to fill you, but that we have to sit with it, and that we have to recognize it, and that we have to acknowledge it. We can't just like fucking Harry Potter it underneath the fucking cupboard, you know? And oftentimes I feel like that's what we're being asked to do, so we find ourselves like almost too comforted and alienated, isolated, and sort of asked to produce more. And that can also just be what you ask of yourself and your racing thoughts, really. And being hard on yourself as a perfectionist. Damn, is this just like directed toward Virgo specifically? And that can be almost too hands-on, like too tight of a grip, almost like breaking things. And we can't hold on that tightly to just about anything. Conversely, I feel like if we acknowledge that, realize that, can face that, and then come back to ourselves and allow that for ourselves, Because there's an interesting relationship here. And allow that for ourselves, then we can create a different kind of action. Like, inaction is a deliberate action, truly. You choose not to do anything, just like you choose to. And you can choose to, like, not retreat, but, like, spelunk inside. Take time to feel, take time for yourself, take time to process information and think. And that's something that I learn all the time. I'll be mid-task and somebody will ask me something and my brain will be like, and without being rude, I just have to be like, give me a minute, and I will be right back. Because I just need that little lapse of time in the midst of the major pressure and compression of time and expectation. Yeah. Okay, with that being said. Knight of Cups, bottom of the deck. So all of that makes sense. Because he is very much a beautiful, soft masculine. And with such ease, despite how destructive water can be, and emotions, like his shoulder pads literally have crescent moons on them, i.e. wearing your heart on your sleeve. There are ways to use your radical love as its own armor. And what stillness, what silence, what peace. I am not for sure, but I do believe he's also the only knight. Looks like his eyes are closed, or they're looking directly at what it is that he has, rather than out and into the battlefield, onto the next direction, etc., etc. There's a lot of movement typically with knights. There's a lot of stillness in this particular knight, and a lot of clarity because of that. Dang, it's like finding ease in the frazzle. You know how you can just like have a to-do list and you're like, there's so much going on, like I can't even focus on one thing. Just sit and do, or like pick one thing to start and like suddenly it grows from there. Or like sit and decide where you want to go after you take a minute to just kind of like chill about it and like untangle all of the thoughts. I feel like that's something this knight does very well. In fact, I think that's, because it's not full night, I think he's actually kind of untangling the day. And that can, Virgo may be a little uptight sometimes and very much a perfectionist, but you know what, don't knock the rituals and don't knock the patterning if it brings you to a place of ease. So often, I mean, most of the patterns in our lives are just like to rile us up and agitate us, or to keep us complacent, or something of that something of that nature, rather than, you know, like a morning routine or a night routine or like a fucking stimming rituals. I don't know. Is a way to untangle the knots of the day. And is ultimately a really kind of form of self-care. But my point with this card also is that the Knight of Cups, exactly what I felt in my hands, is the beautiful divine masculine that is not afraid of his femininity, so much so as to be able to hold space for himself and to allow vulnerability in himself. I always say that, like, regardless of masculinity in whatever form, there is always a she because there is always a chi. And I understand that. Embracing like that energy has also made me feel more divinely masculine, because again, as I always say, the most masculine thing you can do is honor and protect. The most feminine thing you can do is create. The most masculine thing you can do is honor and create that honor and protect that creation. I guess I've just said it so many times I've jumbled it up. And when you honor and protect, you hold space for, vulnerability too. You honor and protect that space in you. And the Knight of Cups is all about that. He is not at all thwarted by the idea of stillness and vulnerability and emotion and what have you. In fact, he faces it. That's what his fucking thing is like before the sun has even set, he is ready to face the darkness with his eyes closed. Really. He's already basking in it, which is amazing. You're my fucking hero, bro. I do think that stillness is also like peak direction, because beyond him holding a chalice of water, beyond him honoring the cups as his suit, I feel like he's honoring like directional quality. There's just like this star in it, and that's often how we can find true direction or true north in our lives, is contemplation, like contemplative meditation. And that's not saying that you go in with questions, but that is saying that you are open to the possibility of answers. And that in and of itself creates light. I could go on about you, my friend, but let's not. Wheel of Fortune, Ace of Pentacles, Temperance, inverted. Interesting. Okay. I feel like there's an element of this is funny. We are often we've been conditioned to assume that our emotions are what hold us back. This is not true. This is not true. No. Our body is what holds us back. Or like the physicality of things is what holds us back, and maybe that's belief in the physicality, belief that you can't do it, or physical restriction. Like so many people have been like, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible. Like that's not what it's about. First off, second off, you develop that. Like saying you can't do it, like it's part of the journey. Not everybody starts out that way. And if anything, it can require more discipline so it's not too hyperstretch or overstretch your body or anything like that. And it's funny because our emotions just want to be understood, like recognized. They don't even necessarily want to stay around. They just want attention. And they often pass very quickly when they're given that. But our body is the thing that fights it. Our body is the thing that, your stomach starts to twist and your muscles start to cramp and you start to get headaches and, your sinuses hurt because you're holding back tears and whatever. Or, you're developing specific, like I have a lot of pain in my shoulders when I hold a lot of emotional energy down. Inflammation in our lymph node system, etc., etc. Like all of these things very physically manifest. So ultimately our body fighting emotions is where we find the most resistance. The emotions themselves and our hearts and our minds don't necessarily really actually want to resist it, but we've been taught that our body needs to resist it, so we've created this war inside of us. I feel like that's related to Mars and Palestina and that's the false choice, or like the false reality, false dichotomy that we've been given, or like false opposites that we've been like pitted against. Perhaps that makes us like too hyper aware with a fine tooth comb and too hard on ourselves in the midst of Virgo energy. Or maybe too critical of others. And you know what I always say, if you're finding yourself judging other people, chances are it's because you ultimately are judging yourself very harshly for those same things. This is an interesting momentum. I feel like it's exhilarating and very powerful. But also perhaps kind of scary. Or intense. It's definitely staring you in the face. With temperance and temperance inverted beyond the body, sifting through your emotions and sort of floating back and forth in your mind without judgment, which is something that might be very hard for our Virgo dears to do. Not necessarily judgment in specific, but you know, like criticism, and the ways in which that we harshly criticize ourselves and others, or fucking anything, really. Given a new moon, yes, we want to focus on the details and reality and facts, but focus on the possibility as well, rather than all of that's wrong. And that's something that we all could do well to remember, and is a constant battle to remind ourselves. The Ace of Pentacles sits in the middle of this, and I feel like while the Ace of Pentacles often feels like a goal, feels like a endpoint, like we're at A, that's B, it's not in this case. I feel like the Wheel of Fortune is almost just to remind you that you can go anywhere, not like in foretelling of the motions, rather than like giving you the wheel, but not telling you necessarily where to go, or not telling you that you have to go anywhere, just giving you the idea of wheel, giving you the idea of wheels. You know, like, here's a car, plan a road trip. And it's also like giving me very like, you do not have to roll this boulder up a hill kind of vibe. Like, you do not have to choose to be Sisyphus and constantly push, you know, all of your past up this hill. This is a very refreshing time where you can like, I'm choosing not to do that. This is not my circle of hell. This in fact will be my circle of heaven. And that is, again, where that sifting energy comes in, because, you know, is it worth it? You know, do you really value this thing? Do you want it at the top of the hill with you? Do you want to make that journey now? Do you want to bring anything else? Do you want anybody to help you? I'm sure Sisyphus didn't have that many accommodations, but, you know, we can make it happen if we need to. But yes, so it's very, like despite the momentum that exists inherently in the Wheel of Fortune, despite the wholeness and the cycling, it's giving you the idea of it, not necessarily the directionality or the motion. It's a tool. It's letting you know this is something that you can utilize. But again, choices, sifting. Temperance is grace, is the pentacle. Like, is what feels like a lofty future, what feels like a far off idea, dream, possibility, is very much already inherently within, is very much already existing, is very much the reason you find yourself in the situation that you do now, even considering whatever it is, or recognizing whatever it is. It's very much like potentiality in the palm of your hands. It's resources. It's resources. I'm going to stick with that. And perhaps rather than seeking elevation, be it, of your mind, of your body, of your status, whatever, seek relaxation, release. It's very much like, rather than shooting for, it's almost like I'm finding more elevation in like sitting into my body and like dropping into my body and like dropping your shoulders and what have you. That does create a natural elevation without really having to change much. It's a different posturing. It's a different view. It's a different weight. It's a different gravitational pull. And I feel like that's where we'll find the natural elevation. It's not that our feet are leaving the ground, but it is that we find this uprightness. And that I think also naturally comes when you let go of the burdens of not being able to feel certain things for whatever reason, or not being able to honor and protect your natural capacity for emotion, creation of emotion, and vulnerability. See, full circle. Damn, I love that. As my posture also kind of blows, but that's okay. This Wheel of Fortune is tripping me out, honestly. Cool. Again, much like we are hanging out, my friends, much like we have cards in between us and we are sitting together, we're going to take 3 deep breaths together, and you will envision a shadow card rising into your hands, over the cards, or as if they're over the cards. Take a deep breath in, and exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. One last deep breath in. And exhale. Interesting. I feel like the Knight of Cups. I feel like a wave just ran through me, honestly. Like, very calmly, very gently out of my hands. And I definitely felt like more space was then created. Some cards fell out. We'll get to those in a second. 2 of Hearts, bottom of the deck. I feel like twos are often considered unions, But we're talking about unifying, like, the expectations of your life versus the time that you used to do that or create that. Like, we can want to be organized, but do we make the time to organize? We can want to be spotless, but do we make the time to vacuum all the cat hair or whatever? As if I know I don't have a cat. It's very deliberate as well. I feel like perhaps this is a signature in our lives and like a crease in that sort of page. And again, we're lending the attention to detail that Virgo has to be able to like really starch out our life and like crease some colors, you know. I think that also goes to say sometimes we're holding on to things that ought to be let go or donated or whatever. Sometimes we're holding on to things in our hearts that really are just taking up unnecessary space, unnecessary weight, which is actually something that I felt with other people's readings. Actually is like just extra weight in my body from whatever they're letting go. And this Two of Hearts is begging for freshness, is begging to be refreshed. And you know what? Sometimes, as precise as our creases can be in the folding of our garments, if it never gets used, those creases become kind of ugly and sort of obvious of age and obvious of neglect, I suppose, and wear through even. And I think that, again, you know, two's asking for refreshing. It's a heart asking for a second chance from you, not from anybody else, from you. Like, your heart is literally like, hey, like, I've done so much for you. Look how much we've been through together. Like, it's time that you love me, my dude, and let's like fucking kill it together. Because I'm not trying to betray you, and yet, you know, conditioning and what have you, the world would have us believe that our heart is trying to betray us often, and it's not. It's just the Judeo-Christian war on Eros, the colonization of Eros, which really cracks me and riles me. But, you know, that's a conversation for another time. King of Wands, Ace of Spades, Nine of Diamonds. Tasks, doing, releasing, clearing, carrying away with the wind, and gratitude and excitement, like the Nine of Diamonds, is a game of chance, but a game of wonder and a game of glory, and I feel like a very hopeful card and a very rewarding card without actually physically being given a reward. It's sort of like good memories where you can just like remember something and laugh. Almost like, and laugh as much as you did the first time you heard it or whatever. I think it's good to keep those, and those don't weigh anything, because laughter is like helium and nitrous and elevates, where it is grief. Grief solidifies and condenses and feels more like stone. And And that's the different kind of earth we're trying to conjure. The cards that fell out are an 8 of diamonds and a 4 of clubs. Interesting. It's funny how time condenses reactions like this, because I feel like it's also all happening at the same time. The King of Wands feels this 4 of Wands, or 4 of Clubs, same shit, fire energy. And the 8 of Diamonds is fed by this 9 of Diamonds energy, but the 9 of Diamonds precedes, and the King of Clubs precedes. And I think that's like, and I'll show you them together. Where does that start? Damn. Damn. This just gave us like a full ass pentagram. Interesting. Interesting. New heart, new paradigm. Okay. King of Clubs, 4 of Clubs. Hard tasks, mundane sometimes, necessary, but precise lines, you know, like lawn lines. Virgo would love those. Carpet lines. It's very, very Italian grandma vibes. Kidding, but but you'll see in a second. And the 4 of Clubs is almost like a similar like mundanity, but it's on a smaller scale, on an independent scale, on a sort of back and forth scale too. And I feel like that may be commentary of the ways that we can sort of riff off ourselves, and how that influences the way that we connect and riff off other people and like riff with other people. The 4 of Clubs is asking you to focus on yourself, focus on tasks that or like goals, joys that fill you before you worry about filling any other expectations, or before you worry about filling anybody else's expectations. The 9 of Diamonds with that element of gratitude and that sort of wish, game, and chance and taking on yourself, ultimately, once you're able to do that, it will open doors, and this is where that wheel comes in too. Once you realize you have the wheel, then you can start to go places. Once you realize that you have love, glory, power, acceptance, you know, whatever the fuck it is you want, whatever it is your heart truly desires, and no, not the new iPhone, then that will start to create more tangible cycles and open doors. That also may be the challenge of the impending Mercury retrograde, is like maintaining faith in yourself even when Mercury bitch slaps you. Which is funny because this 8 of Swords is, for as very much as it's an integral, independent, like, handle your shit, and you know, create that mental cycle that you want. The Swords are very much like head energy, create that reality you want, because our minds do create our perception of reality with our sensory perceptions. In a lot of ways, I also feel like this is like giving, like you're giving faith to spirit, like the gratitude exists kind of as the water of things, the flow, the information, and the 8 of Diamonds exists as like sort of the tangible law of relation, and I think. And the 4 of Clubs is very much that original fire, that fire of Agni, that, you know, archetypal desire. If you've never heard of the fire of Agni, Google it! It's good stuff. But also in Enochian would be the beginning point of the conjuring of the pyramid. And for as small as we independently are, that is, in fact, the beginning point. The Eight of Spades, for as much as, again, it's an independent card, it exists where spirit exists. And so part of me is also getting this, like, you know, let go, let God thing. But, like, that's also not my jam. But it is what I always say, or what I have said to a friend, is, do you trust yourself? And do you trust the universe? And in moments of imperfection that I find stressful or confining, when I need to find space within my body and within my mind, in those moments, I ask myself, do you trust yourself? Do you trust the universe? Regardless of what those are, do I trust myself? Yes or no? Okay, if it's no, do you trust the universe? Yes or no? Okay, if no, then how do we deal with that? How do we create trust in you? So that at least you can trust yourself in the outcome. And if you trust in yourself, you'll find it much easier to trust in the universe. But those two things bring me around many a corner. Bring me around many a square. Okay, that's a ton, and I don't know, can only go so far. But this is exciting. I feel like we're being gifted many tools, and I'm excited for this level of freshness in the world, in the day, and in the energy. And, you know, party on to all my Virgo peeps. For those of you who have been trying to schedule a reading, party on, I appreciate you. I know sometimes it's hard being, you know, in the world and compressed by times and schedules. So for those of you who have had trouble with that, I also hope that this helps hold you over until we can find time. And, you know, sometimes that's just part of the challenge and part of the motivation. Okay, but I need to go. I need to go. So, party on. Love you long time. Thanks for watching if you made it this far. And I wish you the best in this funny Virgo season. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I'm stoked. So, yeah. Grace is the word. Party on.